So welcome, Linda Harvey, textile artist and teacher. Off you go.
Okay, so I'll share my screen and then can you just let me know, Dawn, if you can hear me once I've shared, because I won't be able to see you. So hopefully I should be able to. Oh, is the screen shared or not
Not yet.
yet?
Not.
Okay, let me go back 1 second. Oh, this is a good start, isn't it? Where have you gone? Um, there we go. Right, share. So, is it now?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
sharing.
excellent. Okay, I'll start. That's brilliant. Okay, so hi everybody. I'm Linda Harvey, and I'm just gonna talk through a little bit about me to start with before, just so you get an idea. I know some of you might know, but if you don't, so I've been teaching full time for around 28 years, head of department, same school for around 20 years. So I just work in a large school in York. As it says there, I'm a York mixed media artist, a member of York Textile Artists. I've been exhibiting artwork probably for about 8 or 9 years. And then I've just created an online workshop, which some of you might be aware of, and then also just self-published my first book, which I'm going to talk a little bit about this evening, called Inspired by You, 100 Days of Textile Art. So what I thought when Dawn asked me to do this talk was, what was I going to talk about in the time? So I decided to keep it to two different things. So I've kept it to the 100-day project, and then also some sketchbook practice, because otherwise I found it might be a little bit bitty and there might be a bit too much going on. So I'm going to start just talking about the first chat that I did. So in 2022, I did my first tea and chat, which was called Making Time for Art. And that's something I'm really passionate about, because working full time, as we all know, we don't get much time. We're really, really busy. We go to work, we come home, and then we're usually quite exhausted. So a lot of that chat was about that, and that's still available on YouTube if you want to have a look at that. And that's something that hasn't changed. I still work full time, still busy. And I'm still making time for art as well. So I put this quote up because I really liked it. So even the smallest actions are steps in the right direction. And I really like that, because I think it's very easy for me in particular to just think, right, I haven't got anything on the go, and get a little bit stuck. So this is why I think I take on the challenges that I take on, just because I want to keep going in that direction and just doing little small actions. And that's why I've sort of chosen that quote. So the 100-day project is something that I've done probably for about 4 years. Maybe this is my 5th year, I can't remember exactly. But it's something that always starts around February time. And it's an Instagram challenge. It's very casual. You can pick your theme. You can decide one, even if you finish it or not. But I really find it motivates me. So over the years, I've done lots of different ones. So I've just put a few images up here of the different ones that I've sort of taken part in over time. So some of them have been card based, some of them have been sort of mini items, or different things really. But the one that I started last year was probably the most ambitious one that I've done, and that's the one that I'm sort of going to talk about. But I want to link it back to the classroom as well, because that's important to me, just to see how you can use these in your everyday, if you are working in the classroom. So the idea came about from visiting Anna Whitehouse's open studios in 2022. So we were just sort of having a visit, hadn't really planned to go there, so went there, and it was the most beautiful exhibition. So she'd done 100 days of beetles, and so these are porcelain beetles that you can see here. But I really like the idea of the project. So what she'd done is she'd asked the public to send her images, and then she'd created these beautiful beetles from it. And I was sort of chatting to her, and I just thought that would work brilliantly in textiles. That's something that I'd really sort of be inspired by. So that's sort of what got me thinking about it. But then I didn't do anything about it, totally forgot about it until last year. And then last year I thought, I'm going to do something with this. I'm just going to put it out there and see what happens. And that's what I did. So I invited the public to share photos. I wasn't sure whether it'd be a huge flop. I thought, what's the worst that can happen? So, and I was amazed because I got so many photographs, and it was so lovely to get lots of correspondence about what the photos meant to people, where they came from. And it was actually really hard to pick which ones I wanted to choose, but I wanted to push myself out my comfort zone, and that was the reason that I sort of did the project in the first place. Because it's easy to do the same things, and I'd sort of got stuck in a rut a little bit, and that's what I was doing. So I thought this is a good opportunity to learn some new skills, to connect with people. So that's sort of, as I said, what I did. So sort of started looking through the photos, selected one every day, and then started to get myself into a routine. I'd go to work, I'd come home, I'd spend the evening making the artwork, and then I'd post it the next day, and then I'd continue with that. I did have a break in between, sort of took about a week off or a couple of weeks, but mainly did it pretty much every day for 100 days, and learned so much from it. So what I thought I'd do for this particular presentation is just talk through some of the artworks, but also about some of the techniques that I use. And then if there's anything you want to ask at the end, you can sort of ask the questions, or if you prefer, you can sort of ask in the chat box as you go along, and then I can answer them at the end. So this was day one. So it was actually really hard to choose day one because I wanted something that was quite punchy, but also something that I would never pick. And this is the image that I chose. So with this particular one, I'll show you the video first, and then I can talk through the techniques. So you can see it's more about layers, adding lots of different layers on there and trying out lots of skills. And all of these skills would lend themselves brilliantly to a classroom. So, for example, many times you'd say to the students you want them to have first-hand experience, you want them to use their own photography, and then sometimes they get a little bit stuck on how to sort of interpret those. So this was another reason that I did this project, because I thought this would also help me to help them. And it really did. And I do use a lot of the book. I've got the book at work, and I do use it to share different ideas with them. So you can see here there's layers of water-soluble fabric that I've used, free motion embroidery, interfacing, and Tyvek, along with sort of painted cotton. So lots and lots of techniques in one. So that was day one. So what I've tried to do here is just show you a range of different techniques as well. So some of them here, so we've got some French knots here. Again, we've got Tyvek. I use a lot of Tyvek in my work because there's sort of a lot of distorted and there's a lot of distressed fabrics in there as well. And Tyvek works very well for that. But also what I liked about this particular one, it was about trying to get those colour matches as well. And it was trying to push myself to look at what was really, really there rather than just making it up as I went along, really. So I was really trying on this particular piece to get the colours right and to get some of those textures. So I'll just show you that one. Okay, so some of them are not the best videos, but hopefully you'll get the idea of them. So that was sort of looking at layers, that was looking at distressing fabrics, but also adding in some hand stitch as well. And then this one arrived, and I thought, what am I going to do with that? I love the image, but actually this one stumped me. But rather than thinking I'll choose a different image, I thought, no, I want to stick with it and see what I can come up with. And I'm not quite sure why, but wet felting seemed to work for me. So the base layer is wet felted. So that is something that I did in advance, and just happened to have an old piece of that. And then I used the soldering iron to add in some of the shapes on there and some of the hand stitching as well. Okay, so I think I was actually really happy with that one in the end. I wasn't quite sure how it would work out, but I felt like it had worked as successfully as I'd hoped for, which was great. And then this one, there's lots and lots of layers here. So there's lots of layers of Tyvek, but also there's lots of plastics as well. And I'm also really careful when I use plastics in the classroom, because just making sure that everywhere's ventilated and making sure that everywhere's safe. But the students really love using the heat gun. They really love seeing the distortion with the Tyvek. And the expand it, I use a lot of expand it in my work, and so this has got quite a few different sort of heated acrylic paint, heated expand it, Tyvek. There's quite a few things going on. And I think what I'm also trying to get across when I sort of talk through this with the students is just to experiment and just try things. It doesn't matter if they don't work, but just give them a go. And they've learned quite a lot from that. And I've learned a lot from them as well, just from some of the things that they've done, the way they've tried things out, and their enthusiasm at trying, because they really like this technique. It works really well for them. And so this one, this again is the reason I chose this one is because it's not my colour palette. It's not something that I would normally choose. And I just thought, oh, how can we create this, but a different technique? So, and since I've done this one, I've used this a lot in the classroom, the actual techniques, and it's so simple. So it's just putting elastic into the bobbin, and then sort of creating these ruffle effects, but on top of the sort of distressed background fabric, really. And I find students love this technique, and they can come up with so many different things with it, and they can create so much. And I find this works really well in the classroom, but also in my own work, I've started to use this a little bit more, which is probably a technique that I've not really used, and it was just something from doing this. I thought that could work quite well with it. So there's Bonder web there, there's expand it, there's the elastic and the bobbin. So again, there's quite a few different techniques going on. And then this is a beautiful image, and I was just thinking, how can I achieve this one? What could I create from this? And again, it's just putting together a variety of different techniques. So there's patchwork, and then this is using the transfer paints. But what I did first, which you can't see in the video, is so I used the transfer paints and the leaves, and just did a general print. And then what was left over from the leaf is what I used to create the actual leaf effect that you'll see in the video. So I haven't sort of painted directly onto the leaf. I've just used the sort of the ink that's already on the leaf, which is what I've used for this. And I think what's really nice about these techniques is they are so simple. They're simple techniques, so they fit all abilities. But you can also make them more complex if you want to. And that's again something that I really learned from this project and took a lot away from. This was a challenging one. So this one, I loved the image. I thought the image was absolutely beautiful. But it did make me think hard about how I could create all of the layers, but get all the colours and get all the textures in there. So this one was probably one of the most complex ones that I did. And also they're on such a small scale, because each piece is only, the actual artwork is probably about 8 centimetres squared. So they're very small pieces to work with as well, which give themselves new challenges. So I feel that one is something that I could develop further. Again, really, really fun to make that one, but it did make me think hard, which is something that I also like to challenge students to do in the classroom rather than them just trying to come up with the most simplest solution. And especially for some of our A-level students as well. So you can see there's loads of different techniques there. And I use that technique quite a lot. But probably not that subject matter. So again, really trying to push myself in what I did there. And this again was a bit of a difficult one, just thinking it's so busy, it's such a busy image. And at this point, I was trying to think, right, I don't want to do things that are very samey, because once you've sort of got to, I don't know, day 60, day 70, sometimes some of the images can look quite similar to others. So it's trying to find new images that are going to give me different techniques to explore. So I'll just show that one. And you'll probably notice I avoided the birds. The birds weren't something that I wanted to put on there. And again, I think that's quite nice when you are bringing this back to a teaching environment, and just the students don't have to create exactly what's in front of them. You want them to sort of use some artistic license, which is exactly what I've done there. Some of the students had loved to create the birds, but the birds just weren't for me. So I've sort of left that one off. But you can see there, jelly plates. So I invested in a set of jelly plates, which again, very expensive, but really worth it. And I find our students love the jelly plates. We've got different sized ones, and they are something that we get out a lot and use a lot. And I think they're great for all abilities as well. So something that we do use, well, I use a lot in the classroom. So this one, all of the actual pieces are square. So when I got this one, I thought, I'm not going to get that rectangle to work properly. And I don't actually like this one as much. I don't feel it had worked as well as I'd wanted it to, but I like the textures that it's created, but I feel it's a little bit strange in its shape. But some of the ideas in there are something that could be explored. So I'll just show you that one. So again, lots of things in there that I like, some things that I would definitely develop further if I was taking that piece further, which has lots of possibilities. So again, lots of expanded. Heat press gets used a lot. I use the heat press a lot at home. I also use the heat press a lot at work. And there's so many potential things that you could do with that, as you can see there. And it's just about experimenting, seeing what works, and then pushing those ideas a little bit. And then this one here, I've used lots of different things in here. So there's Tyvek, there's free motion embroidery, and there's Posca pens. So again, I love a Posca pen. Posca pens are brilliant just for detail, but also again, used so much in the classroom. My students do laugh at me because I am the Posca police, because I make sure that they're all back at the end, just because they are. And I tell them how expensive they are. So they and they do look after them, and we've not lost a single one yet. I've invested in a number of them just because they're super to use. So I've used, I say, lots of things, and I've also used pipe cleaners in here with Expand It, which gives the most beautiful textures. So lots and lots in there. And again, I was happy with the colours on that. I was happy with how it had all come together. And that was quite challenging because there was a lot going on in a really small area. So lots of different techniques there. This one, again, is used often. It's not a technique that I particularly use very much, but I just saw the image and thought it might work quite well. I think it needed to be on a bigger scale. In order for it to be a little bit more successful. So we've just got reverse applique here with some layers. I think there's some rust dyed cotton in there. There's some fabric painted cotton as well. So this works really well, I would say, as I say, on a bigger scale, and you can get some quite intricate details in there. And that's a technique I use a lot at work, probably less so in my own practice. But it's nice to remind myself about it as well, which is, again, another reason that I wanted to do this project. So that was the project. So it was 100 days. And then once I'd finished it, I'd always wanted to create a book. And I thought this would be an amazing opportunity to do that. And again, that was a massive test for me because it's something that I'd never done. I actually thought it'd be a lot easier than it was. I thought, how hard can it be to do this? But actually, it was quite a challenge. So I did get lots of help with sort of putting it together. And then just getting it printed. But I was really, really pleased with it. And as it says there, this project was driven by a desire to connect with others and draw inspiration from the community. I aim to challenge myself by stepping out of my comfort zone and creating textiles art as a celebration of creativity and togetherness. And that was, for me, what the project was about. So much so that I even wanted the title to come from the people who'd sort of taken part or had been a part of the journey, I suppose. So I put it out there on social media asking for some potential titles. And I was amazed that 89 people had come forward and given some suggestions. And then the ones that I'd chosen was Inspired by You, 100 Days of Textile Art, which I feel like just brings together everything that this project was about. And it was about connecting with people and pushing myself as well, but being inspired by something that maybe I wouldn't be normally inspired by. Um, So that's pretty much it in terms of what that looks like. But as yes, really, really pleased with how it came out, which was great. So after that, and I always think I'm a big believer in fate, and it was strange because I was speaking to a friend of mine who was part of the York Textile Artists, and she just sort of said to me, "You need to exhibit these together," but I hadn't really got a venue, and she happened to have a gallery, so she said to me, "Oh, you can use my gallery." And that gave me the push I needed to get the book finished, to get everything finished. And so, as you can see there, it finished on Saturday. And it was so lovely to see everything together, everything come together. And it was sort of the end of it, really, the end of it was virtually a year. So it had taken up quite a lot of my time. But it was a joy to do, and I'm really, really proud of everything that's sort of come from it, really. So this is the exhibition. I say that's just finished. So, as I was saying, there's two things that I wanted to look at today. One of them was pushing myself, but also therefore pushing the students, but also at time. And as I'd said before, it is about making time for us and making that small amount of time that we might have. And I found the best way for me to do that is by using a sketchbook. So I never used to use sketchbooks, and it's something that I've started to do more recently. And I've found that because I've become more confident at putting sketchbooks together and I've enjoyed them more, I hope I can pass that on to the students and how they put sketchbooks together, because it's a real joy looking through and seeing how proud they are of the sketchbook work they do. So I just sort of put together sort of 10 top tips that I've used that I think work for me. I'm sure lots of people will have lots of different things that work for them. So sketching every day, that's something I'll do, and mainly they're doodles. And it'll be something that I'll just do on an evening in front of the TV, or I'll take it away with me. But consistency for me is the key, because if I stop doing it and I stop getting out of the habit, it's harder to get back into it. Using a variety of materials, so I like to try out lots of different things. And again, my new 100-day project, which I'll talk about later, setting yourself maybe weekly themes for that. Otherwise, sometimes I find I get a little bit stuck on what I want to do. But also focusing on the fundamentals, and that's something that I definitely do with our students. So at the beginning of year 10, our first project is just that, just focusing, using the sketchbook for the first term and just trying out lots of ideas, practicing mark making, practicing compositions, practicing shading. So this is some of my sketchbook work that really are just that. They're just trying out ideas. And then I found as well, as I said, I give myself, so you can see that's just some of my sketchbooks. I tend to work with really small ones, again, because they take the pressure off of having to fill the page. And that's what I've done with the students at school. I've sort of moved to a much smaller sketchbook. I've moved to an A5 one, and it's been brilliant because it's really taken that pressure off to fill that page. And then I've given myself lots of themes here, and then those themes have gone on to make bigger pieces of artwork from. So the one at the front, that was a theme just looking at sort of North Yorkshire and looking at the coastline. I've done lots of artwork based on sort of ground surfaces. So I'll just play around with the ideas, collages in the book, and then I'll take them further into, as I say, into bigger pieces of art. I put this one in here because I did this a while ago, but it's just something that I think, making things cheap really for the classroom, because I always find that I don't know about you, but our budget's really, really small. So when I was sort of doing this, I thought, we can use everything that's there. So I tend to be a bit of a hoarder and have lots of stuff in the room. But I quite liked the idea of this and some of the things that you could do with it. So just sort of keeping things that you might normally throw away, but that I think could make potentially a nice project to work with. And then quick drawings, adding notes and observations. So that's something that I could definitely do better at, but I'll add the odd note on there. Even though with the students, that's something that's really important that they do as well. Working from life. So as I say, I take my sketchbooks with me on holiday and I'll do some sketches, just some quick ones whilst I'm there as well. Or lots of the time it is purely working from imagination and doodling, as you can see there. And then this is my most recent project. So as I say, the 100-day project this year is not as ambitious as last year. I think this one I wanted to keep really simple, and I wanted to do as a sketchbook. So I think I'm on day 25 with this one, but it's about playing with different styles and looking at and reviewing and reflecting on some of the other work that I've done in the past. But also for me, it is about having that place to experiment as well. And with this sketchbook, this one was another challenge because it was my daughter who made the sketchbook for me out of recycled papers. So I'd sort of said to her, each day I want to be inspired by the piece of paper that is there. And some of those have been much easier than others. So she's going to make me another sketchbook so that I can do the same. But that's been really nice because it feels like, again, another collaboration that I'm using what she's created, and then I'm looking at what's there and what should be or what is inspiring me from it as well. So I've put this on because, as I said, it's back to the classroom. And when I sort of teach the GCSE, the first thing I'll do with them is I'll get them, well, hopefully, get them confident. So we'll look at mark making. And I've just put that quote in there at the bottom: in learning you will teach, and in teaching you will learn. And I feel for me that's really important because I learn so much from what they want and what inspires them, and hopefully they'll learn from me as well in terms of what I can show them. But it's so lovely to see at the beginning of September when they're very, very nervous. They've come in and they're not really sure what they're going to put in the sketchbook. They don't know how to lay one out. And then by the time we get to Christmas, it's just second nature to them. They know exactly how things are going to go. They know what they need to put on there. And then when they move on then to their other projects and they move on to their A4 sketchbooks and their major project, they're really confident in it and we don't have to go through those skills. So I've just shared a little bit of that for you. So I was just going to put this on at the end, just because if anybody is interested, I have got a online workshop which is called Rustic Textures, which goes into detail about looking at your photography as your starting point, and then working from that, and then sort of experimenting a little bit more with the different textures that I've created in the 100-day project, but talking you through them in a little bit more detail. So I've just popped that on there for that. And that is it. So I will just unshare if I can work out how to do that.
Thank you so, so much, Linda. That was mind-blowing. I don't know what anybody else thought, but that was absolutely brilliant. So inspiring. I've got a question, and that is for the 100-day book. Do you how do you decide what the techniques are going to be? Do you have a practice run or do you
No,
or
I
do you
didn't.
just go for it?
I just had to go for it because, again, it was literally when I'd come home, I'd be sort of working on it. So you didn't, but I'd probably have to, and it got easier as I went along because I found that once I'd done quite a few, I'd look at a picture and think, I know what'll work for that. So getting started was probably the hard bit. The first few where I'd be thinking, oh, I'm not sure what I'm going to use for this. But then after that, it definitely got easier. And it just became sort of like a habit. And weirdly, I quite miss it because I've realised I'm a sort of person who needs to have a project on the go. And if I don't, I'm sort of a bit like, oh, I don't know what to do with myself. And especially because this one was great because I also knew I needed an end goal, and that end goal was going to be the exhibition, it was going to be the book. So everything sort of came together, which was great.
So before we questions in here, before we ask them, we're going to do a giveaway, aren't we, Linda, of one of your books?
We are. So I've got the book here, and what my question is when I mentioned in the little presentation that there was I wanted people to give me a title for the book, and I just wondered if you could remember how many people contributed, and then I just thought the easiest way, the first person to put it in the chat wins the book. But I think somebody's just put it in actually, but I might have to leave that to you, Dawn, because I don't know who was first.
Go down and see who the first person was. Oh. Emma Parsons.
Emma Parsons.
89.
So,
Well
I mean,
done. Emma, you need to email me or message me with your address. I probably have it somewhere, but yeah, you need to email me or message me with your address. Or
Yeah,
put it
and then
in chat now, actually.
yeah, so then if you do that, if you send it to me, Dawn, and then I can pop it in the post, which will
Well
be
done,
fabulous.
Emma.
Thank you.
So,
But I don't know if you've got questions.
yeah, questions, anybody? So I'm going to just have a quick look. Gosh. Oh, where'd you get expandex from? Somebody said, does expandex come in different colors?
Yes, I've got some here. So this is where I get it from. So I get it from Colourcraft, and I just buy the natural because you can add colour to it. So you can add acrylic paint to it. You can add, I tend to use acrylic paint with it. But you can do it in two different ways. So you can put the expander on first, then add the paint, or you can just mix the paint in. Either have worked for me before. But I get expand it from Colourcraft. But I know anybody abroad really struggles with it because they have message to say. So and I think Colourcraft do deliver, but I'm not sure how much delivery is from abroad. But in this country, it's yeah, it's really easy to get hold of, and it comes in different sizes. But I would definitely say anybody who uses it in the classroom might know this, but it does go off quite quickly. So I tend to buy smaller pots because it goes mouldy, which is really grim.
So next question, which fabrics do you find work best for gel printing?
Silk works really nice, but it's really expensive. I find the synthetics work better for me. So a nylon works really well. Cotton doesn't really work well. I haven't found anyway for me. So yeah, probably the sort of the shinier fabrics. But silk works beautifully. I think I showed the silk on the one where I used the wood, and that worked really nice. And it's a very lightweight silk that, but I probably wouldn't be giving loads of that out in a classroom.
What ink do you use on the gel plate?
What ink?
What inks, yeah.
I just use acrylic normally, and I tend to use acrylics, but I think there's all sorts of Posca pens work really well on a gel plate as well. So, but again, they're acrylic. I find they work really well for the details. So you can sort of do a bit like mono printing with it as well, which works really well. I have tried others. I've tried sort of what have I tried? I've just tried ready mixes as work, but not as well. It's a bit slippy. I think it's just a bit of try it out and see. But I've tried all sorts of different things just to see if they'll work. I've used wax crayons. Wax crayons work really well on there as well. But, yeah, they're pretty good.
So somebody's asking if you could explain how you use your heat press a little more, but I think that's a course in itself, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I use the heat. Yeah, and I know you do a fantastic course as well for the heat press. So, so I use it using the transfer paints. It's brilliant for that, massively. And I use it just for trying to just even drying things off. I use it for all sorts. I use it for taking a batik off the wax. I probably use it for lots of different. And I use it for the expand it as well and the Tyvek if I want to sort of mush them together. So yeah, there's so many things you can do with a heat press. It's probably one of the best pieces of equipment that I've got.
Yeah. Where do you buy the lightweight Tyvek, please?
I bought it. I normally buy it from Amazon, really. It depends if I'm buying it for school. I'll obviously buy it from, I'll probably use Colourcraft or Dryad. But if I'm buying it for home, I'll just probably get it from Amazon. Or sometimes I use those Tyvek suits. They're like the crime scene ones because sometimes they're cheaper, and then I'll just cut them up.
Right. So where do you buy your student sketchbooks from?
See white.
Right, that was quick. Where can we buy your book?
See, well, I do have, and this is where I am a little bit rubbish, because I have a website. I've just not managed to put it on there yet. But in another way, I've been selling it via a bank transfer. But actually, that's been a really nice way to do it because, as I was saying before about the project, it's all been about communication, and it's been about connecting. So by doing it via a bank transfer, we've been communicating more sort of emails. So people have just sort of messaged and then I've replied, and I've found it's just been more personal. It's been a bit of a slower technique, but it's definitely been a more personal technique. So yeah, I sort of, if you email me or DM on Instagram or Facebook, whichever, I can then send you an invoice with the bank transfer details on there. But when I've sold abroad, because I seem to have sold quite a lot abroad, we've done it via PayPal. So again, PayPal's fine. It's just that PayPal charge you, unless you do friends and family, and then they don't.
So what else? Mita, who has bought your book, is
Thank
asking,
you.
what GCSE do you teach?
So I teach the EduCast board, so it's part of the Welsh board, and I teach that at A level as well. So it's the art textiles course that I teach.
So she's asking, somebody else is asking, do you teach KS3? And if you do they learn these techniques?
Yeah, I do teach Key Stage 3. So we do a really nice project on sustainability and looking at, so I do use the heat press with that. So we look at looking at like crisp packets and how we can sort of mold them together. And then we look at sort of denim. And when we look at the artist Jess Grady for that, we look at Gary Harvey and we look at Kirsty Whitlock. So that's a project that I do it's weird, our course, because they're either taught textiles in year 7 or in year 8. So I teach the same project to year 7 and year 8 because they only get it for 1 year, if that makes sense. And then in year 9, I do a weaving project, so it's more linked towards what they might do at GCSE. And I also do a collaborative project with another department. So we've just done one for the maths block. So we've just done a huge maths quilt, and we're just in the process of finishing that off. So it's sort of something that I wanted it where every student felt they were part of it, so that when their artwork was up, it was all 300 students had their artwork up. So that's why again I've done that project. That's a really short project though. The bigger project's the weave project.
Right. Do you do any workshops online for students?
Do I do any what, sorry?
Workshops online for students?
No, I don't at the minute. I've only just done the one, the rustic textures, which went really well, and that's still available. And then I'm sort of in touch at the minute with Flourish, which is the company that I sort of work with. And then I'm going to do another one. I'm going to film it in the summer, because that's the only time I have. I only have that slot in the summer because I don't have any time otherwise. So the first week of the holidays, I tend to do that bit of filming, and then it'll usually come out towards the end of the year.
So asking for your email address to actually email you for the book. So if you want to put it in the chat, or do you want to tell me what it is now?
Yeah, so it's info@lindaharvey.co.uk.
So it's info@Linda
Harvey Textiles. Sorry, Linda Harvey Textiles.co.uk. Forgot about that important bit.
I think that's right.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, this has been absolutely fantastic. Has anybody got any more questions before I finish? No? Thank you so much, Linda. It's absolutely brilliant. In the link that you'll get tomorrow, I'm hoping that Linda will send me her this presentation so that you've got lots of stuff to look at as a PDF. And obviously the recording of tonight. So if there's no more questions.
Thank you.
Oh, somebody's saying I have a question, or I can't see. Anyway, doesn't look like that's coming through. Thank you so much. I'm going to stop the recording now.